Okay, so let's talk about that. Tell everybody about what the video was. We'll clip it into this so that people can see it, obviously. But describe why was it that you were posting videos, and how did this particular one come about?
So these guys want to talk about JK Rowling. Is that so? What's going on with that? What do you want to know?
She's had a pretty controversial past. I just want to know, like, what are your thoughts on it? And, like, do you still like her work despite her bigoted opinions?
So let's get specific, though. Let's define bigoted opinions.
She has had a history of being extremely transphobic, I've heard.
Hey, you've heard. So what? Can you give me an example?
So, one of these tweets that she came out with in 2019, she said, "Dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, sleep with any consenting adult who will have you live your best life in peace and security, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real."
So you find that bigoted?
I don't really have an opinion on it, but I'm just going with what a lot of other people have said.
So let's pause it. Let's not go with what other people are saying. Let's try and learn how to critically think. So let's analyze the tweet ourselves. So that statement, do you see anything problematic?
Force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real.
So when I hear that, I'm interpreting that as meaning if a woman says that, saying that there's a difference between men and female and then being attacked as transphobic, I think that's what she's saying by attacking someone for stating that sex is real.
That is exactly what she's saying.
Is that transphobic to you?
So, to me, no.
So is there anything you disagree with in that tweet?
In that tweet, I can't really see anything that I myself disagree with.
So now that we're looking at it like, oh, there's not much difference between me or her, do you think it's fair that that she's being attacked by a large group of people and people are calling her, like you said at the beginning of this conversation, you said, given the fact that JK Rowling is transphobic, how do you feel about Harry Potter? Now, retroactively looking at that statement, do you think that was the best way to phrase?
No, I feel like an idiot now.
It's okay though, but this is why we do this, to learn how to think.
I discovered 2017 a video of a professor, low quality video in this classroom that looked like mine. He's standing in front of the classroom talking about archetypes of Harry Potter. It was you. And I was like, that's cool. And this is 2017. That was the first video I saw of you. And I went down the rabbit hole, Caffeine and all that, okay. The classics. But that, and I said to I'm going to try this because I was teaching students about filmmaking and movies. And I was teaching a journalism class, and I was like, this ties in directly. And I loved this style. I was like, teaching is a performance. There's a performance art element to this because you have to be engaging to be able to stand in front of a classroom and get them engaged. There's an artistic element to that I'm not sure how to articulate that. It might not be right.
No, you did. It's a performance.
But that's what I saw in your video. So I went in, it was probably a few weeks later, and we have all the cameras. And I was teaching a student how to use, I said, okay, now you know how to use the camera. Let's try and record this lecture. I saw this thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I essentially ran through archetypes in Harry Potter, and they loved it. And that video is on YouTube. People can watch it. No one watched it at the time, but it's up there, and that's years ago, maybe 5 years ago. That's how it started. So I started, and I was like, this is I agree with you that YouTube is a Gutenberg revolution that we cannot comprehend what it means. It is massive potential, and it's exciting. So I fell in love with that aspect of it, because there's teaching portfolios. Well, what better thing to have in a teaching portfolio
than you're teaching,
than a recording of you actually teaching. Because they ask you to have artifacts, provide artifacts of your teaching. Here's a video of me teaching.
Right.
Beat that. It's like, so that was the thinking. And and also in multimedia, we would do reviews of movies like The Queen's Gambit. We did, and it was just a way to get students to practice articulating themselves. Public speaking, when you don't have a room full of people for them to practice in front of, a camera is not a bad substitute because it allows them to watch it back hear their voice, which at first no one likes. It causes you to cringe. It's a very interesting response.
Right, right.
But you can learn so much from watching and those repetitions and doing it again and again. And they loved it. Some of the students just really loved it. So to bring us to that video, they asked me to do a newscast. They're like, we want to try a new idea. Can you do a newscast for the school once a week, which is what I was doing in that public school. But that was a legit newscast that would go out live to every classroom once a week on Friday. They had all the technology to do it. And they would upload everything to social media. That's why I have a Twitter. That was the only reason I even had a Twitter account at the time.
That was the original school.
The original school, public. I can even say that it was the Neshoba Regional High School in Massachusetts. So if you go to my Twitter feed, the very only first tweets, they're all just Neshoba student broadcast and the head of my department would ask me to just share them. I thought that was just normal. And there was students loved it. And
so how much recording of your teaching were you doing in your classes
not much.
In the second school?
Not too much. I mean, it was more projects like the Queen's Gambit review. I had a colleague, the music teacher, had a passion for camera technology as well. And he was my closest collaborator because we were vocational teachers, meaning we worked with the whole building. We were the only ones that everyone else worked with just their sites. There was like a culinary teacher, landscaping, and they were always experimenting with the vocations, but music and multimedia always remained consistent.
How big a school?
Only downstairs, 50 students. Upstairs, about 50 students.
Okay. And how many teachers?
Well, the ratio was...
You said it was 3-to-1 about, eh?
That's what they strive for, but they're constantly battling understaffing because teachers just vanish often.
Had you done a lot of videos in the build up to the video that got so much attention?
I had been posting little things, just like what I was mentioning, like reviews and things, but no one was watching them and no one cared. It wasn't, and working with the music teacher, we would do like the mathematics of the Fibonacci sequence in music, things which are still up there. So if you're curious to dig in that, you can, if anyone's watching this, but to answer your question about how this video came about, so they asked me to do a news broadcast. We're not equipped to do that, but we tried anyways. And they're like, we want this kid to be the person on camera and just go through, this is what happened in the school this week. So we go in the room, we go to set it up, and he's getting stage fright, camera shy. And I think it's very important in teaching to lead by example. So let's just do a warm up. I'll sit on camera. You operate it. Let's just have a conversation. Treat it like a podcast real quick. Let's do like a 5-minute warm up. Just ask me something that that would interest you. Okay, he hits record. All right, so how have your views on JK Rowling changed given her bigoted opinions? Or how have your views on Harry Potter changed given JK Rowling's bigoted opinions? Well, first we need to address that, and then we just walk through it. And I thought, that's interesting, and maybe I'll try something new with this YouTube thing. And I just uploaded it. I was like, that's interesting enough to post. I didn't think anyone would watch it.
Walk us through your response. What did you know about, you mentioned watching the Harry Potter, an analysis of Harry Potter I had done. And
let's walk through it. So, well, first we need to address, is she bigoted? That's the glaring presupposition.
Right.
So what do you
that constitutes a loaded question. Right.
So what are you basing that upon? Well, I've heard that she's the tweets. Okay, do you have any I can show you the tweets if you want. Sure, let's take a look. Dig some tweets out. We read the tweets. Okay, so do you find that, what about that is transphobic? And I don't remember the exact tweet. We clarify it. And then he goes, oh, but she did apologize as well for this other thing. There's this other piece of evidence. Okay, let's take a look. Same process. Then so I point out, okay, so there's really not much difference between you and her. You understand that she's stating that it's important to her experience as a woman. She has no issue with someone identifying how they want to identify, but that's not going to change. That shouldn't impact her experience and the reality that she's a woman and what that means in reality. No, I agree with that. Okay, so now looking back at the beginning of this conversation, that claim you made when you call her bigoted, do you think that was a fair thing to say? No, now I feel stupid.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. That's why we do this. And often I would have interesting conversations when they arose, going back to the idea of, and there was some blowback about that, of why are you having conversations? Your job is to teach students how to set up cameras and shoot videos and do photo editing and 3D printing and using this technology. But as we just pointed out, there's extreme, if the goal is to use this technology with students in the way that is going to most benefit them, well, that should be.
Use of the technology isn't independent of the content, especially if you're doing video recording.
And there's so much utility in teaching students how to think, how to articulate themselves, and often they have questions about things in the world. I've had students ask me, like, what's a Republican versus a Democrat? And you're like, you're a senior in high school. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then we can kill two birds with one stone. And then we'll have stuff to edit, and it's things that interest you. So if we need footage to edit, might as well make it interesting. And if we can talk about something that actually matters in the world and you can learn something from it, well, why not? So like
you can't learn to edit footage without having something interesting that you're interested in, because there's nothing to edit.
And you could just film music videos and things, but I see more utility. And if a student wants to discuss something like that, I see, that was my reasoning behind it.
Well, that's especially relevant with regards to editing, because you want to clip and cut so that you get to the gist of the matter. And that means there has to be something there to focus on. So
if you're watching, if a student they shoot a music video and they're watching themselves playback dancing and they're editing that, okay, but when you watch yourself speaking, debating, or just, you're learning those oratory skills, you're getting over public speaking fright. There's more utility, I believe, than simply. There's nothing wrong if a student wants to do like something like a music video.
Well, you could do something creative too, but even then it's got to have a point.
But why not encapsulate as much as possible? If our objective is to use what we have to help students as best we can.